Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Jason. I play guitar in a band called Dips and a band called Right in the Shadows. And today I'm going to explain how I'm running my AxeEdit 2. I always get questions and comments after shows about how we're doing things and all that sort of thing, which is great. I love that. I'm a complete gear nerd. Had a million pedals, amps, whole rack set up, all the stuff, and come back down to an AxeEdit 2. And loving it, but again the nerd in me is still pushing it as far as I can go. So I'm going to share some knowledge today and hopefully help some people out who want to kind of run it the same way. Alright, so we're running 2 guitars through one unit, which already saves money and space. I mean, if the other guitarist doesn't have the cash to get in one himself, then you can run it through the same unit. Both get amazing tones, plus you're saving space because you only got one rack to transport, which is great as well. So both of our tones are getting sent direct to the front house, and also we're running our tones into the cabs on stage via a power amp I have in my rack also. So you get super clear tones out the front of house, no knocking over mics, no relying on the sound guard to get the mic tone amazing, all that sort of stuff. But also we're sending to the cabs on stage more just for a little bit of us to get some cab feel and monitor, and also for the guys right at the front. I've been to shows before where it's been run direct front of house, but that's it. So if you're standing at the front going hard, then you don't get the same sound everyone else is getting because you're in that kind of dead zone. So around the cabs on stage, still don't need to crank them crazy, but you still just get that feel out the front, and just enough that you need. And something else I've done recently, which I'm excited to use live. Haven't done it yet, but it's been working at home so far. Is panning the lead guitar into the middle, and the other guitarist's tone gets spread out left and right. So you get that 3 guitar kind of feel like you would on the CD or the proper song. It just creates that bigger stereo picture live compared to just hard left and right, and then alright, there's a lead over here now, there's the rhythm still here. Still sounds amazing, like there's nothing wrong with that, but again, I like to push the limits and see what I can do. So what I'll be doing is going through kind of 3 stages, building the patch from scratch, and we'll look at how you can kind of step off at each point and use that in each scenario, or you can push it right to the limit like I am and use all the scenarios all at once. But yeah, so let's get started. Alright, so this is the rack unit we've got set up at the moment. So it's got a power conditioner on the top, which everything plugs into at the back, keeps it nice and tidy, and also provides protection if anything decides to sure to have a power surge. A matrix power amp in the middle there, the GT 1000FX. 2 channels, so again you can run both the guitars out of it. Tons of power, nice and thin, nice and light, perfect for what we need. And then obviously the AxeEdit 2 on the bottom there. Alright, so a few things before we get started is just setting up the ins and outs so it can accept the 2 guitars properly. So if you go into the I/O menu and page cross to audio, leave the top one to analog, input 1, select either the front or the rear input. At home I use the front just for recording and stuff, and on the road I have rear because I have my wireless set up in the back, but it's up to you, whatever one you're using. Now input 1 mode, this is the important one. Usually it's set to left only. You want to set it to stereo. When we look at the back, I'll explain that further, but make sure that's on stereo. Input 2, we're not using input 2 for the setup, so that can stay as it is. Output 1, we leave as stereo, and everything else stays the same. Okay, so here we have the actual back of the unit. I'll explain the ins and outs here. So inputs, this is my input coming in here on the left of input 1. This lead is coming out of my wireless here, so imagine that's just my guitar coming into left input. Jay's guitar, our other guitarist, sends a lead from his side of stage and he plugs that into the right hand side of input 1. So as we set the front, the ins and outs to stereo, this is going to pick up the stereo signal here from these two leads, both from input 1. Outputs, output 1 here, we send two XLR outs to the front of house. Usually we just take the mic leads that were in the mics on the cabs, so it keeps it simple for the sound guys, still set up the same as when they set up at the start of the night. And these two leads coming out of output 2, these are what's going to my power amp up here. So green lead here comes out to here, red lead comes out up here, and then from the power amp we send the speaker outputs over here to the real cabs on stage. Mine goes from here to the cab below, and then I have a long speaker cable that goes from here to the other side of the stage for the other guitar cab. So as I showed on the back there, out of output 1 we're sending the XLRs to the front of house. So output 1 control is from this knob. So, and then output 2 was getting sent to the power amp, getting sent to the cabs. So this is the output 2 control. So when we're testing, make sure everything's working at a gig, I stand there, I just check the cabs first, turn the knobs up on the power amp for a bit, then start to raise knob 2. Sound should start coming out of the cabs. Then turn that down so we can get a good reference. Start turning this one up, making sure it's coming out the front of house. Sound guy's happy. Bring it up to the level we had for the cabs on stage, and we're ready to go. Alright, so now we've got everything plugged in as it should, and all the I/O settings set as they should be. I'll just show you what the front will look like once we have both guitars running through. So I'm just going to simulate this by reamping some clean DIs back through, so I don't have to have an extra guitar player in the room. So this would be my signal if I was playing. So as you can see, the left hand side of the input 1 level indicator is lighting up. If I show what the second guitar would be doing, you can see same thing, just on the right hand side as we plugged the Jay's lead into the right hand side on the back. Still on input 1. So together, we have both the guitars running through input 1. Alright guys, so we're in AxeEdit now, and we're looking at one of the patches that I use for depths for our song called Cattle of Man. Now, more or less all of our patches look the same as this. I try and make them look as clean as I can and similar as I can, so when I'm flicking through, if there's, if I forget to change something or anything's out of place, it's quite obvious. So generally just, front stuff's over here, the amp, drive, gate, etc. Explain these in a minute. Cabs and stuff down this end, any delays and effects, etc. over here, and I'll explain sort of what these are for and this is for and stuff as well as we go. Alright, so a few points to start off with is CPU. So as you can see for this patch and pretty much all of my patches, I'm at the late 80s mark. As soon as I add something else, it'll get into the early 90s. As soon as you push there or any further, you'll get a message come up on the front of the XFX telling you you've hit the CPU limits, you need to take something out, and the audio will stop, it just won't let you go any further. And yeah, so getting up around this point, all of mine are around this area and I've had no issues. Haven't got the message, haven't had any problems with the audio, at home or live, it's been fine. So if you get around here, then you're kind of safe. If you're on the line any further, then you can't do that, but here it still works. And I mean, it's not surprising with a couple of amps, couple of cabs, delays and reverbs. These are all very CPU hungry things, so a lot or more than one of each, and it's just not going to happen. Second one is the tuner for live, at home, whatever you want to do. The tuner only picks up the left side signal from, like I showed you earlier, on the back of the unit. So in this case, only my guitar gets into the tuner, which is fine because I have my MFC in front of me on stage, and it would kind of be a bit weird because we'd have to take turns and Jay would have to come over and chill by me to tune and go back. So it's not such a bad thing. He just has his own, I think he's got a Boss tuner in front of him on his side of stage, and then he sends his lead from there to the back of the unit. No big deal, probably works out easier, to be honest. Last major one for now is the MIDI control. I mean, how do you change through your scenes? How do you change patches? I have my MFC with me in front of me on stage. Yeah, I mean, you can use any sort of MIDI controller, but the MFC is great, the fractal unit. And I control everything. So even if Jay's playing a lead or a solo, I change the scene and hit it for when it starts. It's not a big deal. I mean, I don't mind. Deps doesn't have, we don't change tones every 2 bars, so it's not a big deal. And at practice one time we just gave it a shot, and I instinctively just nailed whenever he had his leads and stuff anyway, just because the song's inside out, and it's just not a big deal. If we really wanted to, we could, I'm sure there's a way we could kind of piggyback the MIDI and get him a unit on his side of stage, even if it was a simple one. But it's more gear, more hassle, and it's, for how we're running it now, it's working, so why mess with it? But that is something you do need to know, is one person will have to control it all. Alright, so I'm sure there'll be other things, but I'll get to them as I go. So from here on, we'll take one last look at this, as it is the finished product, and I will then start from scratch, and we'll go through 3 phases, which are all the phases that I kind of hit, used, and then proceeded on with. So it's kind of fast forwarding it for you, which is a bonus. So phase 1 is basically just running 2 guitars through the one unit. How to set this up, how to make this work, and then basically you have 2 options. You can run them through front of house and complete DI, use the fallbacks as your monitors, that kind of setup, or run your signals into real cabs on stage via a power amp, either a rack unit or the effects returns on the heads at the venue. We used to do that as well, but that's just running through real cabs on stage, not front of house. Phase 2 is making a very small adjustment to run direct to front of house and into cabs as well at the same time. And then the last phase, phase 3, is all of the above and the panning options I explained earlier, where the lead guitar comes to the middle, the other guitar spreads to the sides, and then after that, for both rhythm again, you can go just left and right, hard pan like you usually would. Alright, so let's get started. So if I clear this patch, and there we are. Alright,